Cheers to that.
Cheers,
Happy
mate.
Wednesday.
Happy potty day. Best day of the week.
Potty day, yeah. Happy hump day. We're through it.
Just finished up a client meeting.
I did.
Presenting a brand, I believe.
Yeah.
Should probably not do that, eh? It's going to be like...
What? Oh, on that? Yeah. On this solid, yeah.
But yeah, just finished up a brand presentation.
That's right. Just wrapped it up.
How'd you go?
Really good.
Yeah?
Really good, yeah. Presented it all through. I was really stoked, and without sounding too cocky, I was pretty confident, you know, but you should always be pretty confident about the work you produce as you go through.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm really confident about presenting this one to the client. It was definitely right up their alley. It fit their market, it fit their industry, and presented it through a came up a treat.
Tick of approval?
Tick of approval. She's off to be apt.
Any answer? No, nothing. They didn't have anything for you?
They had just a couple of concerns around it might look similar to something else, but we were just like, it's all good. We've interpreted it in our own definition, and we've built a brand around it that's just not this mark. And they were happy with that, which was great.
And it's a fun one. It's fun on that one. Do you find that when you're building a brand, you have to have a level of connection with the business in order to build a really solid end product?
Yeah, you definitely have to understand the ins and outs of the market and the business that they're in order to tailor a brand that's going to suit the demographic and the industry that they're in. Otherwise, you're crafting something that might look like an esports team brand that's going to be shown to corporate people in a wealth management centre. It doesn't really match up. You need to know the market. You need to know who we're developing this for. Is this for an individual? An individual's kind of brand is very personal, so you can kind of get a bit more personal with that one. Whereas, are we crafting something for a company that needs to adhere to, and represent maybe 2,000 people? And that all comes into play when crafting a brand like that.
100%. So, for those who don't know, this is second time on the YouTube channel.
I've gotten the call up.
Yeah,
I've got the call up.
Arguably our most experienced YouTuber here at Moonward. A absolutely exploding YouTube channel.
Yep.
Cobb Crazy, is that what it's called?
That's right.
Cobb Crazy.
That's right. Right.
We'll chuck a little link in the description.
Link in the description.
Is that what you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
I'll put a link in the description for you guys, for us as well.
There we go.
Okay.
That's cross promo.
Yeah, 100%.
But for those who don't know, this is obviously Lachy, your UI UX designer here at Moonward.
That's right.
Our longest serving employee, our longest serving team member here at Moonward. Have you always wanted to be a UI UX designer?
I would say probably no to that.
Great.
I think I never, fresh Lachy coming out of high school, really didn't know what he kind of wanted to do, even though he had a path straight out of school. So when I would have no idea that I'd be doing this at the moment. So when I left school, 2 to 4, I'd say maybe 2 months out before formal and all that, I at school was doing graphics, which was kind of in our school it was doing house plans,
Like architecture?
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily graphic design. And through that, I got this company contacted the school, and they were like, "Oh, we're looking for graduates and things like that to come through and do an apprenticeship with us and get work." And we were I saw that and I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool."
Yeah.
It was a civil engineering role, so it was mapping sewage lines around Brisbane, figuring that out, and roads and things like that. So real civil stuff, which was
very civil of you.
Super civil.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm an engineer. Go ahead. And
Family
do that.
would love that.
Exactly right. That's a great one to come back to the missus parents with. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm an
Civil
engineer.
engineer.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. brilliant.
Can you help me with my town plans?
Yeah, can you plan my house for me?
Yeah, I've got a little extension in the backyard.
Just need to sort it out. I want to put this veggie patch in. Can you plan it out on a chart for me? So I went to the interview for that, and they asked me I was 16, I was 17 when I left school. Fresh. This was like my first kind of big interview.
Yeah.
I was currently working at old Kmart throughout school.
We'll get up to that.
Oh,
what a place.
Pushing H cages, but
Yeah.
we got there.
What a place.
Well, it'll loop around anyway.
Yeah.
So I went to that interview. Apparently it went really well because I got the position, and I was like, brilliant.
So they took on one and two?
They just took me on.
Nice.
Took me on, which was great. I was like, sweet. Like, how good is this? I'm not even out of school yet, and I've got a job lined up straight out of school. I was obviously chuffed, and parents are proud and all that. And I was like, great. Like, I'll be an engineer. Kind of like, not gonna lie, how we were talking about before. Like, sweet. I'll be an engineer.
I'm sorted. Yeah.
Next year rolls around, so Christmas goes. The next year starts. I start doing it for a couple of months, and the place it's not necessarily what I was definitely expecting from the position.
Yeah.
For me, it lacks that super creative zest to it. I wasn't able to kind of be very creative there. It was very like methodical. I'm not a mathematician by any sorts. There was a lot of kind of calculations involved and things like that. So with that kind of stuff, the work didn't resonate with me personally in order to like give my 110% every day. Like, where can I give the extra? It just didn't click with me. Thankfully enough, the company wasn't going to crash hot, and they ended up actually letting me go before that. So when I look back, and it's an absolute blessing in disguise. At that point, I was like, oh my god, like life is over. Like, what I'm going to do now? I'm going to have to go back to Kmart, which happened.
Back again.
So we're back. I remember the day as well. I rolled into the manager's office. Like, I had actually not been working then. I strolled right up to the store manager. I was like, hey, like, can I have my job back? And they were like, okay. And I was like, sweet. So ended up getting it back.
Nice.
Which was great.
So you mentioned with the civil engineering stuff, you said like it wasn't creative enough for you. So had you known you were looking for a creative role at that point, or was that like a little bit of an aha moment, like, okay, this doesn't really work for me?
I'd say more aha.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, in my brain back then, I thought, I would never be able to do graphic design because I wasn't creative enough, or I couldn't draw things out, or I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and I'd never kind of get there.
Yeah.
Even though as a child, like, I was just drawing whatever. I just was just drawing stuff. I probably throughout all of primary school, I drew 60%, learned the other 40. Like, I wasn't really, I was very creative throughout those years, and I thought I wanted to do kind of something mechanical wise. That's kind of why I probably took that engineering route initially, but it was definitely that aha moment to where this is very methodical. Granted, you can be creative in those kind of industries. You have to use creative thinking in order to execute something, of course, besides like what someone else has done. But it wasn't the creative that drew me in and got me excited to build something out, I would say. And
throughout school, you mentioned you did graphics. Did you ever do any like design or art or anything like that?
I did art in grade 10.
Yeah.
And funny story actually. I was doing art, and we were painting, and you know how they'd have like, I don't know, in my school though, they reuse the big vinegar, like jugs.
Yeah, right.
You know, you can buy like 3 litres worth of vinegar, and they'd fill that up with paint. And we're like cleaning up after a paint one day, after a session. And the teacher's like, oh, look, you can take those jugs to the sink and set them up. I'm like, yeah, sure, no worries. And
are they full of paint?
Full of paint.
Yeah, nice.
Like full of paint. I'm actually carrying yellow paint.
You're
carrying yellow paint. And I go to put it up, and it slips out of my hand, and it drops on the floor. And the paint explosion in that room was absolutely ridiculous. My uniform, I remember wearing it for the rest of the day, just went, douche, like all straight up my shirt. I had all of this yellow stuff everywhere. I was trying to wipe it off, but you know when you try and wipe something, it just gets worse.
Yeah.
The whole front of my shirt,
well.
year 10.
Peak awkwardness in life.
Oh God.
How awkward are you?
So awkward. I was like, I had no idea what to do with myself that whole day. Even the teacher was like, wow, this is the biggest spill we've had in here ever. And I was like, that's great. So
they didn't even give you a replacement.
No, he was like,
just
go to lunch, mate, eat your sandwich, who cares?
Like bloody Simpson.
I think I found like paint in my ears as well, like going through, but yeah, drop. But art, actually that introduced me to Photoshop.
Okay.
I was mucking about with Photoshop in there. It didn't actually click with me then at that point as well that, you know, Photoshop is fun. To me, actually, Photoshop was very confusing in grade 10. I had no really idea what to do. Because I think how they had it structured was people had like pre-done kind of Photoshop stuff, and I'd come in really fresh and they were like doing all this stuff, and I was like, how do I resize an image? And I just no idea.
Yeah.
So I did that in grade 10, left that in grade 10, and then all throughout...
Didn't vibe it?
Yeah, it kind of came back to that engineering thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I went down, because then I enrolled myself in graphics, which was super architectural.
And this is where you have to like, there's a bit of pressure. Like, make sure you pick the subjects that you're going to lead onto.
That's
your
right.
career
Yeah, they were like, you know, you can only do this once. You need to get your QCE or your OP and things like that. So you need to make sure this is right. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna. I'd always been pretty good like with my hands and woodwork and things like that. So I was like, right, I'll do woodwork and metalwork, and then I'll do graphics and a class that they called ITD, which is like industrial technology. And I was like, cool.
So
if I can't do exactly, if I can't do like the office job, I'll be the chippy, or I'll do something else. Right, I'll have a kind of a wide range of skills. And that's kind of the direction I took throughout school, which kind of lent to that engineering path kind of outside of school. From there,
yeah. Okay, and so what made you go down the engineering path? Was that sort of an external factor, or you genuinely wanted to go down the road of civil engineering?
I just saw it as an opportunity, and just went for it.
Yeah.
I was just like 17 in school. My graphics teacher was like, this would be pretty good, like apply for it. And I did, got an interview, and got it. And I was like, righto. It just kind of had that flow.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like I'll just keep pursuing that, I guess, or it just felt very safe at that point. Because at that time as well, it was very much grade 12. You're going out into the world. It's going to be very scary. You need to lock something down now. And I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. I could take this now.
Yeah.
So I just took that and was there for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, had you done any YouTube or no?
Yeah, I had. I remember because I would actually cop it from everyone at school.
Really?
Because like it was
like banter or pretty full
on. At the start, I reckon it was pretty full on because I was pretty like big in school. I like lost a lot of weight, and that's another massive transition in the learning curve as you go throughout school. And like I experienced that of being the big guy and then kind of slimming up a bit to how then people really respond to you as well, which is really interesting. But when I kind of started it, I was like a bit of a big guy, but I wanted to kind of start doing this YouTube stuff. So I'd cop a bit of heat for it, like especially the subject topic. Full disclosure, Cobber Crazy, I do Nerf Blaster stuff on YouTube.
Love it.
And because of the subject being Nerf and things like that, everyone sees it as like the yellow pistol that goes 5 feet and is not going to do anything. But kind of what I was doing was, again, kind of using my hands, being that kind of mechanically on-hand kind of things. I like to pull them apart and like upgrade them and things like that, which kind of lent to that engineering pathway.
Yeah. But also the creativity to actually document it and publish it.
That's right. That's right. It kind of, there was that kind of methodicalness, and then there was that creativeness to it as well. And I just liked kind of sharing. I just liked, shipping work and getting work out there and like showing art and things. I was like, this is really fun. And I just kind of enjoyed it. And I think every 17-year-old or 16s, whatever, was like, I want to be a YouTuber. Like, oh yeah, right? Yeah. So I was like, I'll give this a go. So I did that throughout school, and at the start copped a bit of heat. And then I think I gained a bit of momentum throughout school, a little bit, not greatly, like maybe a couple of subscriptions and things like that. I think I probably ended school maybe like 50 subs or something like that. But I had it there, but because I had that weight transformation, I kind of became bit upper class in the school.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It is crazy. Definitely really opened my eyes, like a life experience to know like how kind of people look at you and judge you based upon those things like that. So it was very interesting for me to learn. And then it really started gathering pace after I got left out of. I dropped out of engineering for that job.
Yeah.
Because I went back to Kmart, like I said.
So before you went back the second time, how long had you worked at Kmart?
I worked there through school, so that was like my school job, starting to build up a resume, get people skills, start figuring out, working the registers, stocking shelves at night, just doing the rough jobs.
What a great place to work.
It was actually, and I know you spoke to this about with Liv, saying hospo is like another one job, but everyone was like, go work at Macca's. I was like, no way am I working at Macca's. I wanted the cushy Kmart job, and I was like, but I feel like you still got the people skills.
I agree.
Because halfway through Kmart's life cycle, they moved the registers to the middle.
Yeah.
In Australia, at least. And we'd cop flack for that, or just like liaising with someone at a register and things like that. Like, hey, how are you?
So no self-reg jobs at this point. You're all still one-on-one.
We still had them, but we hadn't moved all the registers to the middle yet. And you'd man a register every now and then.
Yeah. People are still a bit unsure about this automated self-registration.
100%. It's always like, you're stealing jobs from all the people coming in and wanting to work
Bloody
at Kmart.
robots.
It's like, we're flat out trying to get people to behind these cash registers that like these robots are actually doing us a favour.
That's all it is.
Like it's like it gives other people jobs, I think. The software developers that need to develop these things, it gives more opportunities to them, but that's that. But worked at Kmart all through school, so I think I was already there for maybe like 2.5 years. Then kind of came back, got back there, and then throughout that time I was actually pretty lost on where I wanted to go. I actually didn't. I had that whole rest of that year off.
So you were just working at Kmart?
Yep, I was just working at Kmart. I did.
What one?
Callumvale.
Callumvale. Is that a good Kmart?
We were a pretty good Kmart.
I can't say I've been.
Yeah, we were a good Kmart. Come on down. I won't be pushing H gauges there, but it was a good Kmart. It was one of the last to get that reno done, so people really liked it because the registers were at the front and not in the middle.
I liked old school Kmart. I'm not a vibe of this middle thing.
It's all
I don't get it.
They just can't revoke it now because they're like, we can't give in. We're so far gone. We can't give back in. So I just worked at Kmart. Ended up working in the lay-by section in the morning, doing stocking the DVDs.
Got rid of that as well, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Well, I worked in the DVDs. Genuinely, 100. Like, I worked in the DVDs section when they got rid of them out of Kmart. I remember like stocking the DVDs, keeping them up to date. Like when a new release would come in, I was like pretty pumped. I was like, how cool is this?
Yeah.
Had this little end that I managed, like the end of an aisle. I'd have the movie poster there, and I'd have the movies there, and then like set up all the pricing, and it was pretty good fun. Managed like a stationery, and I did that for a while, and that was just like so I was doing that like 5 days a week, every day in the morning. It was like guaranteed hours. So okay, like this is pretty good for like a gap year. I didn't want to look at it as a gap year. I didn't want to take a gap year. Like I said, I got that kind of position out of school, thinking that's the direction I'd go. But I was like, yeah, sweet. This will be kind of like a gap year. I can figure maybe some things out. And throughout that year, I kind of like looked at graphic design, but like, did some of the YouTube stuff as well. Like I was making content and publishing it out, and that was definitely the year I started getting like traction on that side of it, which was cool to see. And that definitely kept me going. And like, I would say that YouTube piece definitely drove me to where I am today as well. You could root it all the way back to that yellow plastic gun driving me to where I am now, through being mechanically minded to then creating stuff and content to then familiarizing myself with like editing tools to then expanding my knowledge to like UX and things like that.
Yeah.
I did that for the year. I think in that year I got to maybe like 1,000 subs, and I was like, sweet. Like,
just from content?
Just content. Just pumping out content. I wasn't like trying to set the world on fire. At that point I was genuinely just like making the blasters that I wanted to make. And just like put them out, go play games. If people like it, people like it. I think I started like monetizing it maybe the year after.
Mm.
Because I was like, this is just fun, and I just wanted to do it. But yeah, towards the end of that year, that gap year of figuring myself out and things like that, I was like, no, I've got to do something. I want to go and study. I thought study was the direction. Maybe looking back at it now, I wouldn't always recommend people to go and study, but it's good. If you feel like you want to study, go and study, because it definitely forced me, Jesus, definitely forced me to go to like push myself. I knew I had like deadlines on me, so I was like, no, I've got to do this. I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done. So I actually kind of liked that structure to it, and that's maybe why I went back and did it.
Yeah. So what did you go and study at that point?
Yeah. So the first one I did was I went and did a diploma in graphic design. It was just like a 1-year thing, and I was like, if I like this, I'll keep it going. I just want to try this 1-year thing, see if I like it, see if I get anywhere. It's not like a massive investment up front from like repaying uni and things like that. So I was like, I'll do this for a year, see what happens, and then keep going. So I was working at Kmart while I was studying and things like that. And
any idea, like you selected graphic design, any idea on what you wanted to do at that point, or still like a little bit unsure?
I just wanted to explore that kind of avenue of creativity, and like, can I do this? Like, can I be this kind of creative person behind the computer, like I've been doing with, this nerve stuff, all this video making, kind of all these graphics and things like that. Can I do this for a job? Like, where could this take me? I just wanted to get in there and see what it was like. At that point in my life, I didn't really have the drive to kind of like get up and research and draw and do all that stuff kind of like at home. It didn't really have a vibe, even though I think now if you've got a pencil and paper, you're a graphic designer. You can start designing on absolutely anything. Like, buy a $2 pencil from Kmart, a $2.50 sketch pad, and you're a graphic designer. You can start crafting things, you can start designing whatever. The world's your oyster on that piece of paper. So from there, did that for the year, and then throughout that year, I was kind of liking it. I was like, this is fun. I was learning about typography, I was learning about symbols, creating like brands and things like that, using programs like Illustrator and things like that, learning all that stuff, and I was like, this is pretty fun, like I like doing all this, but I still had that thing like in the back of my brain, like, could I be the graphic designer still? Like, will I be able to do like the cool brands and the cool graphics and things like that? And then in the last trimester of uni, we did a class, and it was a web class, where you designed a web page, designed the brand for it, and you coded it out in HTML and CSS.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And the teacher I had, his name was Liam. Liam, he was a really good teacher. Yeah. And I really resonated with his energy. He was really excited to teach what he was teaching. Yeah. And I'd never experienced that ever throughout kind of... I feel like most teachers like what they do, but the energy that Liam brought was... he was really honest with you as well. Like if you showed him some work, you'd be like, this is great, well, let's see where we can improve on here. Yeah. And it kind of stoked that fire in me to be like, okay, how can we make this better? He had that energy every time he came into class. He was like really up and about. He's like, there's this really cool thing I found, like, let me show you, like, here's this, let's look at this. And it kind of stirred that fire for like, this is really fun, because I started doing out the website, and we coded it out, and I was like, wow, I've just coded out this really cool website. And I was like, this is cool, like, this is great. And it was like a UI UX class. And I asked him at the end of it, I was like, are there more courses like this? Because I hadn't enrolled in anything bar this year. The year after that was just like grey as grey could get. Like, I had no idea if I was going to keep going to Kmart or what. Yeah. He's like, yes, we've got UX orientated courses. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And that's where I started doing the UX. So I did another 2 years of an associate's degree in digital media. I've got them both hung up on my wall now, and I'm just like, delicious. That my $70,000 wall ornament, like, how good. But yeah, did that for 2 years. Yeah. And I'm so glad I did. So like, like the chain of events is like really cool, and you can like look at them as like dots and things like that. But all the dots connected up to get to where I am now.
Yeah. So you finished uni. Did you do like any like UI UX type jobs when you were at uni, or it was just like you were just fully focused on the actual work that you had to do?
Yeah, I did. So Liam, he was really good. Like I kept, he offered me this into this paid little internship for Lee Cooper, the like a jeans brand.
Yeah.
There was this guy in like North Brisbane who was like based here for some reason, but all the developers were in like Turkey and things like that, which is whatever.
Yeah.
But he said he's looking for like a little UI UX intern to come in like once a week. You'll be paid for it. I was like, sweet, let's go do that.
Yeah.
So I took that opportunity, went there once a week, and it was pretty interesting. The office was a bit strange. It was like above this like roofing company, so like the bottom floor you'd walk in, it was like the roofers, you'd be like, morning blokes, and you'd head upstairs. It's like this little room where it's like, hey, we're here to like do this website for jeans and things like that.
Yeah.
The weirdest setup.
So was he UI UX designer, that guy?
No, he was like the project manager there,
Right.
and he wanted me to like come on board to like look at the website and things like that, and like make up some stuff.
Yeah.
He ended up like offering me at the end of it. It was like 8 weeks. He was like, oh, I'd love to have another project manager, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want that. And then I went back to Liam and said, this is kind of wrapping up. Is there anything else? I was kind of using him as like, you could think of him as like the, like in a game, just like asking for like the next mission and things like that. I was just like pestering him for like, what's the next thing? Because it felt really good to have that first kind of role that I could put on like a little resume and be like, I've had the internship, I've had the experience, like the foot's in the door, like it's creaked open a little bit, like what's the next one?
Yeah.
And he's like, yep, I might have something for you. And I was like, great. So from Lee Cooper, I went to a design agency in the city, and they were called K-Bar Design. Worked there for 6 months. This is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So worked there for 6 months, got in there, and they were like a full-on like design place, and I was like, how good?
Yeah.
Like,
So like full-on design agency, websites, apps, brands, the lot.
They were doing websites and brands,
Yeah.
no apps, nothing super digital. They were doing everything in like WordPress and things like that, like classic agency, like as classic as you get.
No marketing.
Yes, marketing. Yeah, like super classic agency. And it was good. It was like, sweet, like here's that next rung that we've gone up to. I've gone from that internship. I'm starting to like climb that ladder, which is great. So I was there, and I was actually hired as like a WordPress guy to like build out WordPress sites.
Nice.
At that point, I'd never touched a WordPress site in my life.
That's good. I like that.
I know, right? And I just went straight on in.
Baptism by fire.
Baptism by fire. I remember my first day. Like I was freaking out. I was like, I'm not qualified. I should not be here. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That was probably the most stressful week. But
YouTube.
I know, right?
How to create a WordPress
How to
website.
install WordPress theme. How to change WordPress background color. Like it was legit. I was legit doing that.
Yeah.
But you learn so much from doing that. It's like, everyone has to go through that phase, and it's just what happens. But then I ended up doing like motion graphics there, and I used a lot of like After Effects there as well, and like lent on kind of that YouTube knowledge I built up, which was good. She's like, does anyone know, the main lady there was like, does anyone know how to do this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, if there's something I can do besides trying to figure out this WordPress site, like I'll help you do these motion graphics. Yeah. I just gave it to the other guy that was there, and she's like, yep, sweet. And I made them. I did like this first kind of motion graphic, and she's like, awesome. And then from then I just turned into like the motion guy that was just using After Effects and doing Premiere Pro. So I was like, how good's that? So I enjoyed that for a while. I was only working there part-time, but it was like another thing to have like the foot in the door. I was still at Kmart during this time, just like filling the period. So I was like 3 days at this design agency, and then I was like, whenever I could pick up a Kmart shift, like I was earning money there as well.
How'd you find that? Did you Did you see a little dip in your performance at Kmart? Or was it just for you like pure money? Like all you saw is 8-hour shift, X amount of dollars, get in, get it done.
It was kind of, I would say, performance definitely probably maybe dipped because I had my sights set on where I did want to go.
Exactly.
And I was like, I want to do more of this stuff.
Mm.
I saw it as like an opportunity to come in and like earn some extra cash on the side and be like, sweet. Because at that time I was still studying. I was still trying to make YouTube videos. So 2 jobs, uni full-time, and then YouTube at the same time.
Yeah.
So a lot was happening. But I was like, let's... Kmart was just like, sweet, I can earn extra here. So like, why not go for it? So kept on plugging away there. I probably only got maybe like the odd Saturday or Sunday every now and then because I'd grown out of that age threshold where they're like, oh, we don't want to give you shifts because you're too expensive now.
Yeah.
But it was nice, the call up. You'd come in, you're like, yeah, what's up? I haven't seen you in ages. And just do some light work and be like, sweet, extra $100 this week, no worries. Yeah, so that was fun. And then I was there when I was at this design agency when COVID hit.
Mm.
So this was it was 2020 here, like early 2020, and they just like completely shut down like everything.
So they just closed doors?
Yeah, they've closed doors to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, so really upsetting. Hopefully they're all doing well. Shout out to the whole crew over at K-Bar Design. Hopefully you're doing well.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there, so I had no job, kind of then again, and I think at that time, I'd maybe left Kmart as well because I thought I had this job now. This will turn into full time.
Yeah.
I want to put all my resources into this. So I left Kmart. I was putting all my resources into that, and then COVID hit, so I had no Kmart to kind of go back to. And I didn't want to swallow my pride and be like, third time lucky. Let's head back in, boys.
Store
like
manager.
if we go right.
I'm back.
Exactly. Welcome back. I was like, nah, I'm gonna maybe figure something out. But through that COVID period, it was just like maybe it was like 4 to 6 weeks of just like complete shutdown where like nothing happened. Like I was just at home ripping into the new COD, like having an absolute blast.
Nice.
It was good
full
times.
Dungeon.
Oh, sweaty.
Yeah.
Very
nice.
sweaty dungeon.
Nice.
And then I was like, I need to do something. So I, having my degrees now, having worked there, had those experience and things like that. No, I was still at uni actually through 2020. 2020 was my last year of uni, so I was still wrapping that up. So I was still doing that, during COVID, which had me something to do. It was my last year. But I was like, I need to get back out of industry again. I'm sick of this kind of being just thrown off and, jobs ended.
Yeah.
So I applied for some roles and I got an interview to another place. Went there. Interview went pretty well. I thought the guys were really fun there as well. It seemed pretty good. It was like a nice office kind of environment. I enjoyed the interview. The guys seemed really fun. I was like, sweet. That went really well. Went home, as you do after an interview. And then the next day,
went to Kmart.
Yeah, went to Kmart. No, they called me up and they accepted me, and I was like, sweet. And I was hired for another WordPress role because at that time when COVID was off as well, I was like really refining my portfolio and really built it out so I could like show that off. So I built that out, got that role, and then again I was there for like 2 months and I resigned from this place personally. The only time I've ever resigned because the management there was just like ridiculously, I'd say pretty crazy. Like it was a pretty crazy environment. The guy who ran the show was very, I'd say boisterous in his attitude. Very, like he was a smart guy. Like he'd gotten there, had a good bit of cash behind him, but it wasn't an environment that I was very comfortable working in and coming into each day. And I was like, that was probably the biggest reason why I wanted to leave. It wasn't necessarily the work. I kind of enjoyed the work there. I was like, yep, this is fun. Again, more experience, but the atmosphere there and the culture there that was just boiled down to these people. They felt like they were just the robots behind the screen, just like pumping out code or pumping out designs every day. Just felt very soul sucking. I was like, I just can't do this here.
Yeah. And was there a particular time, like the classic saying, was there a straw that broke the camel's back? Was there a one thing, or was it just a build up over time of a magnitude?
There's a great story. But I would say it built up.
Yeah.
It really did build up. But there is like a point in time where it was just like, no, I need to leave this role. It's a good story. So during the mornings, during COVID, I actually went out and bought myself like this mountain bike.
Are you working from home or the office?
The office. So I'm coming into the office every day, but I bought myself this mountain bike to ride around and do exercise in the morning for like, wake up at 5 or 6 or whatever, go for like a ride and come home and then head off to work for my exercise.
Yeah.
And during one morning's ride, there's this bridge, and I'm riding up to this bridge, and there's this man on the other side of the, and it all connects back. Trust me, right? It all connects back, all right.
We're going in.
It all connects back.
Yeah.
And this man and his dog on the other side of the bridge, and his dog is this. I think it's probably maybe a 6-month-old kind of pup at this stage, and it's just blue Staffy, and he's walking towards me, and I've actually stopped to like let him come through. And he goes to me, you can't ride your bike on the footpath. And I was like, what? What do you mean you can't ride your bike on the footpath? I was like, surely not. And he's like, no, you can't. I was like, right, whatever. And I actually just rode off that morning, and I thought, whatever, I won't ever see him again. Maybe 3 weeks later, the night after my 21st birthday party, which was unreal.
Where'd you go?
It was a house party.
House party?
Yeah, because we were only allowed 20 people at that point.
Yeah, cool.
Which was, I feel lucky that I was able to have 20 people at my 21st, because not many people got to experience it throughout COVID, so I was pretty happy with that. Anyway, I'd taken my birthday off, so I think I had a day off throughout that week or whatever. I was riding again on this morning. I was like, let's keep my exercise up. Might not be coming into work this day, but I'll keep my exercise up. No, sorry, I didn't have that day off. It'll link back to the story. I've come up to that same bridge again. I've seen the bloke again. Now, the dog's gotten like way bigger. Like, it's a big boy now. And I'm right up, and again, I pull off to the side and I wait for the bloke to come to me. So he walks up to me and he goes, mate, you can't ride your bike on the footpath. And his dog, he was like holding it back on the leash, and this dog is like agitated. Like, it wanted to go. Like, it wanted to like rip in, or it wanted to do something. And I'm just standing there on my bike, and then all of a sudden this dog jumps up, latches onto my arm, and bites my arm on the forearm. 100%. Bites me on the forearm.
Does it hold on?
It held on for maybe like 2 seconds, and then he like yanked it back. And then the instant adrenaline hits me. I'm just like, did your dog just fucking bite me? Like, I was like going off. Like, I just turned into another Lachy at that point, and he's like started to walk away because he knows he's stuffed up. Right?
He's in trouble. Yeah.
He's in trouble, and I'm like, what's your name? And to this day, nothing's been tracked down or anything like that, which sucks. But he was like recording me, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna take this to the police. I'm like, great, like awesome. Anyway, so from there, I call up work, and I'm like, I've just been bitten by a dog. I'm probably not going to come into work today, sorry. Yeah. I'm going to go to the doctors, get some tetanus shots and things like that, and just see how my arm goes for the day. It wasn't broken or anything, but like it like pierced, like there was like blood coming out or whatever like that. But nothing serious, and as far as I know, I've not got any bad diseases. Had my tetanus shot that day, so I'm sweet, which was good. But that day that I was taking off, the boss calls me up and he goes, mate, we've seen those emails that you've been sending out. And I'm like, oh, what emails? And I'd been sending emails from my personal computer to the computer that they had in the boardroom to do these presentations on, just because there's no like USB way to do it at the time. I was just like really quickly send it to that Mac in there, I can bring it up in there and I can present it to the room on that Mac. And they were like, we've seen the personal emails that you've been sending to yourself. You know, that's like corporate espionage. And they accused me of corporate espionage. And he's like, you know, have the rest of the week off, like, come back in on next Monday. And I was like, righto, whatever. And during that week...
Is this a standard for this boss at the time? Had you seen anything like...
Oh, there had been this time where one of the employees there apparently weren't being too great with the female employees there. And he called everyone into this boardroom meeting, and I've never experienced this ever in my life, where this boss went off at our whole group, put these two people on the spot and just yelled at them in a way that was so like aggressive and over the top and very uncomfortable room to be in. And that was another thing that really opened my eyes, like the personality of this person. While I don't condone any of the stuff he was talking about,
the manner that he went about
the manner about it was absolutely ridiculous, and it actually came out that those guys didn't really do anything like that anyway. And for that to happen in front of everyone, just, you know, wasn't great for employee morale in the joint, and just completely sucked the life out of the place as well. People started leaving after that. Someone left before me after that, but then I just kind of culminated all of this kind of evidence in my brain together and went, do I want to stay here? And it was scary at that point to leave that job, because I was like, you know, will I get anywhere after this? Like, it's middle of COVID, like no one has anything going on, like, but I just knew inside of me, you know, everyone I kind of talked to, they were like, are you sure? Like, you know, it's a massive deal, like you should just keep it. And I was like, I just knew inside of me that like this was not it. Like, I needed to get out of this environment and into a better headspace, because I was waking up and I was like, man, like, do I really have to go in? Like 5 o'clock was the best thing that ever rolled around, and waking up was absolutely like nightmares. Like, I didn't want to wake up and even go in, or even think about the, you know, tomorrow's Monday. I was like, oh God. So I left, and again, one of the probably the best decisions ever in my life. Because I'd say maybe a month and a half later, I find a little ad up on Seek that I'm going through for. And at this point, I'd probably been unemployed again for, you know, like maybe a month or so.
No Kmart?
No Kmart again. Chin up, swallowed my pride. I was not going back to the mart.
So what are you doing? Bit of COD? Bit of design,
you know, back
stuff?
to it again. Like, but I think this time I was super on design. Like, I was doing websites for like cafes and things like that. I was really building our portfolio. I was creating things that I wanted to really do. And I really built a portfolio for myself again. Yeah.
And just going back, so you had a really poor experience, and that was your second job in design. Like, second proper job.
You
did the internship, but that was the second proper job in design. How did that sort of like feel, thinking that you'd put all of this time and energy into a diploma or a degree? You were sort of had at this point dedicated your, you know, that certain section of your life to design, and for it to go so poorly at that second job. What are you feeling, and what are you thinking at that point in time?
I think I felt at that time, I knew I wasn't upset at design. I was upset with whom I was working for and what I was working towards, or there was no vision in the place. I still knew that I was like, I know I am this creative person, because I enjoyed that second round of courses and things like that. Like, I enjoyed the graphic stuff, but when I started doing that UX things, I was like, yes, like, this is the calling, like, this is the direction. Like, I enjoy the mechanical, the nerf, you can bring it all back to that. Yeah. The creative, the videos, bringing something and being really creative, something like art and things like that. Bringing those together, like, that's what UX is. You bring the theoretical into the creative, and you can bring both of those together in a really great way. That's like a digital software product. And I just knew inside of myself, you know, it sounds really cheesy, but like, I just knew that I needed to keep pushing forward. Yeah. I knew that there would be this isn't the end. Like, there will be something. This isn't like dead in the water. Like, at that time I was like, oh my God, they're going to see that I've worked at this place for 2 months. They're going to be like, oh my God, like, you just stay at a place and then move on, stay at a place and move on.
Yeah.
That did like weigh on my mind a bit. I was like, no, you just got to keep pushing, and you'll find something. I think that was where I was at that point.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then from there, like I was saying, I crafted that resume, cover letter. I can still remember what it looks like now, and by golly, like I'm very surprised that. Anyway, I'd been probably unemployed again for like maybe a month and a half. Still like sending out resumes. I went for like 3 interviews at places, but when I went this time, I had that cap on and that mindset of I need to not work for dickheads again.
Yeah.
Or I need to go in and like evaluate who I'm going to be working with here, as a way that I'm going to be seeing these people every day. I need to ensure that I'm getting along with the vibe here. And I kind of had some, and I was like, these are good jobs, but they're not great jobs.
Yeah.
And then, oddly enough, it was a Saturday afternoon. I was actually at a Nerf event.
Nice. Yeah.
And I got a Seek notification pop up on my phone.
So you're at the event, gun in hand, gear on.
Yeah, I think 100% gear's on.
Yeah.
I just finished a round, I think, and the Seek notification comes up, and I've looked at it and it's Connect Digital, Moonward. The job description and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think at this point I'd handed out resumes, and I actually looked at it and went, there's no way I'd get that. Whatever.
It's so funny.
And I pushed it back into
happens all the time.
I pushed it back into the back of my brain. And I went home, and I was going out that night as well. I was going out to dinner or something like that. And I'd, gotten ready and everything like that. I think I had 2 minutes before I was going out, and I was like, what was that ad again? And I just read through it again and went, whatever. Just sent it off.
What have I got to lose?
Exactly. What have I got to lose? I think the Monday of, Pia reached out, and we teed up an interview.
What a time. First interview.
It was a good interview, wasn't it?
It was great. Hold that thought. I'm going to quickly piss, and then we're going to chat about it. So, the first interview.
First interview.
What a great time that was.
It was.
I vividly remember it to this day. We just put up the design ad. I think we probably put it up a few days before, maybe 3 or 4 days before. It was still quite fresh. And this is the first interview Pia and I have done together. So we've done all this prep, like we've got all these questions like in our head, like we've chatted to a lot of our friends and clients and whatnot, and sort of got some feedback. And at this point, we're at the that sort of like shared space. Yeah. So you'd gone in, and they sort of give you like a receptionist. So you greet the receptionist, and then she points you in the direction of there's 20 or 30 other businesses in the room. And sure enough, she lets us know that you're at the reception. And come out. Take me through the outfit choice. What an outfit choice.
I think, great outfit. So I think I started planning what I was going to wear. What time was it? I think it was maybe like 2 o'clock. So I think I started planning what I was going to wear, like in the morning. Like I went through all my button-ups, all my chinos.
Good start. You've decided to go button-up.
Yeah. So let's keep it formal.
Exactly.
And I thought, what's more formal than a button-up? Now, I didn't want to be too spiffy, but I wanted to ensure that I was here to work. I knew my stuff. So I looked at all my ties.
What colour button-up, by the way?
It was maroon. Yeah. Maroon button-up. With, I think, like diamonds on it or something like that. Diamond pattern.
Because you're a classy man.
Exactly. I'm a classy man. From Connor. How good. And then I see, and I'm like, yep, sweet. I like that. I like the look of that button up. It was a long sleeve. Yeah. It felt pretty good. And I was like, sweet, I'll put that on. I was like, what am I going to pair with that? oh, well, the diamonds are white on the button up, so I'll go my white chinos. That's bold.
There we go.
Very
That's
bright.
extremely bold.
Very bold
Big
and
decision.
bright. I was like, that's good. I'm liking that. I then picked out the belt that I wanted to wear, and I was like, oh, am I going to go tucked? I was like, yep, I'll go tucked to show the belt off. Found a nice light brown belt. Oh, because that matches my nice light brown watch that I was going to wear. I was like,
It's all coming together.
Jeez, this is coming together well. Put on my light brown, nice dress shoes as well.
Yeah.
We're trotting around. I was like, this is looking good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's just one thing missing.
It's not feeling right, is it?
It's not feeling professional enough.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to make a statement.
Yeah.
Oh, my silver formal tie.
Silver formal tie. Coming back.
You're coming with me. Strap that thing around my neck.
Double Windsor.
It was actually a Windsor
There
knot,
you go.
and it was still tied from when the guy at the store, when I bought my formal suit,
I love that.
tied it up for me.
Yeah.
I didn't untie it, and I just pulled her up, and I was like, booyah.
To this
We're
day, not one person has worn a tie for an interview. I think that's a great achievement, to be honest. I think it's an amazing achievement.
I think it shows the landscape.
Absolutely.
It shows the landscape.
Yeah.
But no, I was out to impress, and it's just become like a gag now. It's like, oh, Lachy in his tie. How good. He loved it. He loved rocking up to his interview with his tie. But yeah, I threw that on and came on into the shared workspace. And I remember the receptionist as well. And I was like, hi, I'm here to see P and Andrew. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll let them know you're here. It's like, sweet. And I was there, like, also I was like, shit, like, ironically the one that I didn't think I would get, I got the call up for.
And I think there's and although we give you a bit of flack around the silver tie,
it's funny.
It is good. But I think there's a deeper meaning around it, and it's the fact that you actually put a bit of attention and care, and not just what you were wearing, the actual interview process as a whole. Because with all of our interview processes, there's that practical element. And we'd obviously sat down and given you a practical assignment. Yeah. Take me through your thoughts there.
Another perler, a humdinger. So the practical. So we'd had the interview. We went to the coffee shop. We had a nice coffee. You actually bought me a coffee, and I was like, wow, that bought me a coffee. Far out. Had the coffee. I think at that point I had my laptop that like swung all the way around and like a tablet as well.
That was the most amazing thing ever.
And I was like, here's my portfolio.
CV.
Yeah.
And I was like,
here's what I prepared
you
earlier.
just broke your laptop, mate.
Yeah. Showed that off, and you guys were like, wow, cool, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. And yeah, so show that, and then the practical. So you guys tasked me with building out a pregnancy app for a pregnancy app which would track like the birth cycle and everything like that, just whatever, right? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, sweet, I can go ahead and do that. And I think you guys pre-framed it like, oh, just do like a bit of a brand, just do like something, like put something together just so we can see, what you've done. And I remember leaving that interview, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, and to your guys' credit, that was the best interview that I'd ever gone to. I felt like super heard and listened to, and I was like, can safely evaluate that these people aren't dickheads, and I'm like, I'm keen for this role. Like, this feels right to me. Like, bringing it back to that last place, I'm like, this, like all the other places that I'd went to, I'm like, this is an opportunity. I'm like, this feels right for where I'm at. And I was like, I need to impress here. I need to put something together that's really good. And I think that's what got me fired up after the interview, because it was so nice to go to that I was fired up after it as well to like prove like, yeah, like I can do this stuff.
Yeah.
So the brief, very small, do like some pregnancy app screens, just put a couple together and send it across. I was like, sweet. So from there, that night when I got home, I started then and there. I think Pia said, have it to me by Monday, and this was a Friday that you guys tasked it with me.
That's full on.
Yeah, that whole weekend was me doing this practical Partly because, like, one, I really wanted to impress you guys, and two, I was really enjoying it as well. Like, I was having such a great time doing it. And I was like, why not? And I just had ideas as I went through, and I went, why not include it in there? Kind of like the tie. I was like, why not? Yeah. Just go for it, right?
With the time mentality.
I mean, I'll shoot my shot, can't lose, right? Yeah, just keep, like, the more I put in, I feel like it just flowed. So I build out, I think, maybe this small app, and looking back on it now, like, it's a complete train wreck, right? Like, the UI and things like that, but built out maybe, like, this whole authentication process, built out, like, this bottom bar area, built out all this app area, and I was like, sweet, this is great. I was like, now, how am I going to present it to them? How are they going to understand my thinking? And I was like, I need to do a presentation for this. I went ahead and did this full, like, XD built-in portfolio presentation thing, put it all in there, and I was like, cool, that's great. And I was like, well, what about the brand? Like, how are they going to know my thinking behind the brand? They obviously want me to do brands there, so I'm going to have to build out the branding aspect of it as well. Yeah. So I go ahead and lay out all my branding thinking, type, colours, logos, how I got there, all this stuff, and I'm like, that's great. Put it all in there, and I was like, well, we've got the brand and the app. I was like, well, it obviously needs a website, right? I was like, great. Build out this miniature website for the app as well. I think that was about five screens. Yeah. And then I was like, I was still looking at it, and I think because as I went through, I just had, like, all these ideas that were coming through to me, and I was like, an Apple Watch app would be so cool. And I did, like, 3 screens of what it looks like on an Apple Watch, put it all together, and that came out to be a name that I named it. It was called Positiva, and that is positive in Spanish. And I chose the word positive because that's what you like to see when you're pregnant, of course, when you're trying. When it's positive, it's good. So I chose that for the name, and Positive has gone down in history as probably the most robust, built out employee task ever to have been received.
Absolutely. And so you finished it. Did you think you'd killed it?
I was nervous. I was still like, is this enough? I was still like, oh, what if I could have done this? What if I'd done that? I still feel like I could have gone a little bit more, like maybe the extra mile, but I was like happy with it. I was like, look, I'm pretty confident, like, surely they'll like this, and like sent it off, and I think I was confident that, like, you know, I'd hit the task, right? Yeah. But it was more so if you guys liked what I had actually put together. Like, was this the style you guys like? Was this the direction you guys like? Is this how you like to work? That was probably more on my mind around, like, what are your guys' standards as to what you guys want to see? Not even really thinking about the effort or the time put in of itself to show character. It was more so the outcome of it was still, like, weighing on me. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then you did the presentation. I think you came in to do the presentation.
I did. Because I sent it across to you guys, and I think you guys were like, this looks great. I think you guys probably just like, holy shit.
I don't even think we had XD downloaded.
Oh, really?
So we couldn't see it. Oh. I think we just saw, like, the home screen.
Anyway, I came on in and demoed it off to you guys, and like, so like, yeah, like, this is the branding, like, how cool is this? Like, call it Positiva, demoed it all off, showed it off.
Did like, you weren't wearing a tie this time, or you were?
Oh, what did I wear to my second? I actually don't know what I wore to my second.
Neither. I don't think it was tie. I think that was a one-hit wonder.
It was a one-hit wonder. Yeah. I actually had a light brown jacket on that day as well for the first interview. No, well, it just shows how prominent
Positiva
that
just
first
took over.
Interview, right? Yeah, it did. It did. It was the tie to Positiva. I don't even remember what I wore. That's how it knocks your socks off, you could say. Demoed it off to you guys, and at that point I think you guys were like yeah, this is, like, cool, like, nice, but you guys are, like, definitely playing, like, the the hardball game at that time as well. Like, I couldn't draw. I was like, I feel like you guys liked it and things like that, which was good, but I didn't fully know like whether I was going to get the role or not. I think you guys were still like kind of holding stuff close to your chest around what direction and things like that you guys wanted to take.
Mm.
And then I think once we did that, it was like maybe a couple days after. I think you've told me this. You wanted to like play a little bit of hardball after that.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, first of all, we wanted to make sure we made the right decision.
Yeah.
What we're all about is hiring great people, because you can always learn and improve your skills.
Mm-hmm.
So we were speaking to a couple of people, but we just wanted to make sure we were selecting the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't want to jump the gun. I will say you were the first person we spoke to.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember leaving the interview and Pia said to me, yeah, he's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we've got to, like, we've lined up another two. We've got to make sure we speak to them.
Yeah.
Let's give them the time. Let's give them the space. Let's give them the energy. But yeah, you're right. A couple of days later, jumped on a call, offered you the role.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forwarding now, a couple of years here at Moonward, coming up 3. How's it been?
It's been probably the most self-discovery, learning and experimentation. Also probably the most exciting kind of like times of my life as well.
Mm.
This role has shown me a lot more about design and things like that in an industry that, definitely relate back to that first interview where it's like 60% passion, effort, and communication and things like that. Then it's like the 40% of design on top of that.
Yeah.
It's showed me, the resilience and the courage and to, keep pushing and keep driving and keep achieving and keep trying new things and keep delving into different skills and experimenting and not calling it quits there and going like, what's the next level deeper to that?
Yeah.
And like personally developing through that role has been incredible. It's been like, super personal as well, like going and doing things like outside of work, as you do, like you move out and things like that, and going through like this role and things like that the whole time. It's been a roller coaster, but it's been such an enjoyable roller coaster because of the culture that we have here. It's that stark difference. Like if you had like, night and day, it was the place I was at, and here's like night and day, right?
Yeah.
It's coming from that environment to the environment that we have here, and back where we were in the shared place, that initial starting place point there. It was that stark difference between like, we want you here, you're invited, you're welcomed to, like every morning it was just like, sweet, like let's get to work. Like I'm really excited. I want to create something. I want to push myself harder. I had experienced none of that before in my life. Actually, I'd never, like, even came out and things like that at the other design places. Like, I want to try, but like I said, excuse me, like I said before, they were opportunities, but this was like my calling as such, and that's where I was like, no, let's really put in the effort here and like really dive deep. And I was free to be myself and experiment around with things. I never felt like, oh, is this right, is this wrong? It was just like keep forging on down this path and developing skills and meeting new people and learning so much along the way. It's been incredible.
And looking back now, if you think back to year 11 when you were picking those subjects, is that right?
Yeah, it would have been like grade. Yeah.
So what advice would you give yourself for that if you could go back now?
I think the advice would be like, I saw a Steve Jobs quote, and it was like, just trust that all the dots connect. And I think looking back on it now, like at that point, Nerf's not going to get me anywhere, or making these videos isn't going to get me anywhere, or doing all this stuff kind of outside of school, like doing this at school isn't really going to get me anywhere. But all of those little dots and experiences needed to happen in time to develop myself and get to where I am now. like in order for it to happen. Like if I didn't go to that engineering place or I didn't do all that stuff, like I wouldn't have experienced it and I wouldn't have probably have left.
Yeah.
But I didn't go to that place, I didn't know what a good place looks like to go and work for. If I didn't, experience that place before before COVID and things like that, I wouldn't have experienced, all the experiences that happened there. Or if I didn't work at Kmart, I wouldn't get people skills and things like that. So it all draws back, and just trusting that the path and that the dots will connect and you'll get to where you're meant to be. And you'll get there through putting in the hours though. Like you've got to be there. Like if you sit on your hands, like the line will end.
Exactly.
The dot.
You can't just
automatically
sit in your
connect.
bedroom and pray.
Exactly.
That someone's going to knock on the door.
100%. But if you actively probe, you will connect the dot to somewhere. It might not be the last dot that you need to get to, but like you'll start flicking them through and getting to where, and you'll start drawing that picture in front of you, and you'll map out what and where you're meant to be, and find your calling.
Yeah. And for anyone out there, whether they're a designer, a developer, a civil engineer, someone who wants to work in Kmart for the rest of their life, if they're struggling right now, whether it's through a lack of confidence, they see the Seek ad and they don't believe in themselves and they don't believe they can put in their CV, or they don't think they're qualified enough to potentially get the role or get an interview, what advice would you give them?
The advice for people maybe stuck at a place that they're not experiencing, or maybe they're not comfortable at, I would say do the wake up test, kind of like I did. How do you feel every morning when you wake up? Is Monday something you absolutely detest and don't want to come around to? Or is it something like, okay, sweet, I can go to work, I can rip in, I can have a great time, or I'm really excited about the work that I want to come and do? How do you feel when you wake up and you go to work each day? Are you excited? Are you anticipating it? Like, is waking up like, oh, I have to go? Look at yourself upon that and go like, because you have a choice, and it's a scary choice to maybe, like I did, drop out or like leave that place, but it turned out to be the right one, and I think it is the right one for people that feel like they're not having the best experience there, because overall happiness and things like that throughout your life, and no matter where you kind of end up and no matter what you do, is the overall pursuit. And matter of fact, we all like to kind of work and experience things and like go out and work, so you need to enjoy what you're doing, because we're only here for a finite amount of time.
I agree.
And we need to ensure that every morning that you wake up, you're excited to go to the place that you're going to go to and enjoy the day, and come home and be like, sweet, that was another great day. So the wake up test would be great. For the people out there striving for the interview, just keep probing. I know it always says, 3 to 4 years experience, or whatever on those Seek ads and things like that. Try and expand your vision a bit more outside of Seek. If you're at uni, go to your professors, talk to them and be like, what opportunities do you have? Are there anything that I can do outside of them? Do you guys have industry links? Can I get an internship somewhere here? Offer yourself for free. I was lucky enough to get somewhere that was a paid internship. I wasn't expecting it, but it was great. Offer yourself up, do something creative, be super energetic about yourself, show your personality off. It's not always about the design and always about the creativity. It's about what person shows up to that interview. And like we've talked about, the tie or whatever, come to that interview yourself, be you. Don't try and be the designer that you idealize or think they want. Be you, because they'll see you for you, and they'll appreciate that, because that's that energy that they can have inside of their workplace. And I'm sure that's the culture that they want to have in there as well.
It's that thing where if someone comes to me and they've got that hunger and that energy that they want it's like a magnet. It draws you in. As soon as you get that energy, you get that vibe, and within a split second you understand that person genuinely wants it, you give them all of the time. You give them all of the time that you've got, because you know that they're heading in the same direction. They understand the vision, or they understand what you want to achieve, or they're going to help you achieve whatever you want to achieve. Or vice versa, you look at that person and think, wow, this guy's got such an awesome energy, an awesome vibe, I can potentially help them go in a specific direction and take themselves to the next step. It's amazing, like you said before, the amount of people who do wake up and they think, fuck, I have to go to work today. Or, oh my God, thank God it's Friday, like only 5 hours and I can hit the beers with the boys and just, chill out and not have to think about work.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly right. Like, it's one of those things where people have to have jobs, people have to work, you have to have money because it makes the world go around. But you've only got a short amount of time on this planet. It sounds brutal, but once you're gone, I don't really know, but once you're gone, you're gone.
Once you're not alive here anymore, whatever happens after that happens.
Whatever
right?
happens,
exactly. Yeah.
And no one really cares once you are gone either.
Yeah.
So you really genuinely have one opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people just get sort of stuck in this rut where they don't believe in themselves, they don't have any confidence in themselves to push the boat out. And I think the great thing about your story is you were very comfortable saying yes to opportunities, whether it was exactly the perfect one at that point in time, or you just sort of have a stab in the dark and say, hey, look, what's the worst that can go wrong? I'll work at this place for two months, I'll get a little bit of experience and I'll go on to the next thing, which I think is a really cool thing, and something that I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who will be able to learn from. I guess with that in mind, you're very much in the design space here at Moonward. A lot of branding for our clients, a lot of UI UX design for our clients, which is basically designing out mobile apps, websites, that sort of thing. For anyone who's in the design space or wants to be in the design space right now, based on your experience with real clients, real projects, taking projects from ideas, when people just come to us with ideas and now we can see them on the app stores, they've got hundreds of thousands of users. What would you say is the biggest misconception that a lot of people have around UI UX design?
Wow, that's a really good question. The biggest maybe misconception around UI UX design, I think for UI UX designers, I think they looked at the designers that are like the super techie ones, like the super kind of hard aspect to push into. It's not like, I can't be super creative, I can't be, exploring color, I can't be exploring type, I can't do things like that. And while maybe some super UX based roles out there are just user flows, analyzing data, figuring out where people are going, there are UI UX roles out there and software designer roles and things like that do allow so much creative freedom in terms of a user interface and things like that, like we have here at Moonward, which allows you to still have that technical side, but still then express yourself through so much fun, through like sketching and drawing and color and things like that. Like that's the ratio that I really liked about UI UX. It wasn't just about the super expressive type design.
Yeah.
It was still very grounded with that theoretical and data-backed type design where you could marry the two together and go, this is right because of X and looks great because of Y. And you could put those together in a way that, and then you can share it with the world, put it out there onto the App Store where hundreds of millions of people go on there and use it every day, which is super exciting, and the possibilities. So I'd say that would be maybe my biggest misconception, that, sometimes in these roles you can have your cake and eat it too, where you can be the one that's techie and figuring out a complex problem, but then you can go ahead and make it beautiful in a way that's very expressive. And I'd say another misconception is that people look at it as a very hard role to get into as well. People think you've got to have all this coding background, you've got to have this background, you've got to have this, or you've really got to understand code. And while those things are fundamental, and I think one of the best things for me was, coming back to that HTML, CSS class, I learnt a bit of code and I understood kind of structure and how it's just boxes and boxes and boxes. I'd really recommend designers or UX designers that are exploring that to just craft something in HTML and CSS and to build that out and see how this stuff comes together. Because then you get the developer's perspective of, that's how we're going to build it out. And that's how this kind of crafts together. This is how this data gets pulled in. a misconception could be a UX design doesn't have to worry about code. They don't have to worry about all that other stuff, but you definitely do. You have to liaise with the developers all the time, having to figure out if this thing is actually possible or not. Where are we getting data from? It brings that logical side back into it. So there is an element where you do have to understand it from a high level overview. I'm not saying you have to write a function that, you know, calculates the orbital mass of the sun compared to the moon, but when you understand the basic fundamentals of a coding language like that, you're breaking down the barrier between developer and designer. In industry, sometimes those guys can clash heads because it's design is this looks good, developers are like this doesn't look good, and then developer and designer war breaks out. Does not have to be that way. You can share that relationship upon the designer understanding that there are code limitations, and vice versa, developers understanding that this needs to look and function like this because a user needs to use this thing. And
that's the thing at the end of the day. You mentioned the butting heads. You've got this developer team who are very focused on features, functionality, getting a product out there. You've got the design team who's very much focused on how can we make this really beautiful, how we can maximize the experience, how can we make this the best possible process from getting a person to sign up to getting them to interact with whatever feature. And you've got those sort of not necessarily conflicting interests, but you've got those two different directions, and you guys have to meet in the middle to ensure that there's that balance and everyone believes that they're maximizing the product. But the most important thing at the end of the day is users. How can we genuinely get a product out there and get users on board and ensure that they have the greatest experience possible?
That's right.
Because developers can develop features for the rest of their lives, and designers can design features for the rest of their lives, but if we never actually ship a product and get something out there and get real users and get real feedback, we're all wasting our time.
That's right, and that's the biggest part of it. Like shipping, you need to ship the work. You need to get that out the door. We're creative, and because we get it out there, and we're not holding it back. We looked at creative people because the work's actually out there. If you harbour your work all the time and you're not releasing it out to the public, no one's going to see it. No one's going to know that you exist. And coming back to maybe even a kind of commercial look at it, like losing profits possibly. Can you make a smaller version that goes to the market earlier, that's still very creative and developed out, but not so bloated and heavy from the start? And then, you know, things can snowball from there where feature bloat and things like that. So bringing it back, ensuring that, you know, whether it's a client or you're working for a business in of itself, ensuring that the work we're shipping meets designer and developer hand in hand to take it out to the world.
Great. So to wrap up, final question. Probably the one of the most important ones.
Yes.
We've had a little bevy this afternoon as we've been having a chat.
We have.
What's your favourite beer?
My favourite beer? My favourite beer at the moment, I really like the Black Hops East Coast Hazy.
Black Hops?
Black Hops East Coast Hazy.
Queensland beer. That's great.
Born and bred Queenslander.
Shout out to the Black Hops.
Shout out to the Black Hops.
We had a great time on the Super Hornets.
That's another great story. Great day. But no, that's a nice beer, like super cold, straight out of the fridge. It's a beer that doesn't taste like piss. It actually tastes like something super refreshing and like that quenched my thirst. So yeah, East Coast Hazy at the moment, delicious. Would recommend. Great
Wonderful.
Beer. Good beer.
Cool.
For sure.
Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been great having a chat. Some amazing golden nuggets, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more of these to come.
100%. Hopefully I get another call back. Okay. Comes in threes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Cool.
Easy.
Done.
How good?
Let's see if we recorded the old girl. We're still going.
How good? Yes. Very nice.